Welcome back to Thunder of Zeus, where we explore the forces shaping our world and the decisions that could define the next decade. Today, we're diving into a question Europe hasn't asked in generations. What does it mean to be ready for war? As the world grows more unstable, from Ukraine to the South China Sea, the European Union has launched its most ambitious military plan in modern history. They call it Readiness 2030. But is it really about protection, or is it about power? In 2025, the European Commission unveiled a sweeping initiative called Readiness 2030.
We are in an era of rearmament. And Europe is ready to massively boost its defense spending, both to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
It's a plan to reshape Europe's defense industry, to produce its own weapons, coordinate armies, and strengthen borders against growing threats.
The first part of this Rearm Europe plan is to unleash the use of public funding in defense on the national level. Member states are ready to invest more in their own security if they have the fiscal space, so we must enable them to do so. And this is why we will propose to activate the national escape clause of the Stability and Growth Pact. This will allow member states to significantly increase their defense expenditures without triggering the excessive deficit procedure. The second proposal will be a new instrument. It will provide 150 billion euros of loans to member states for defense investment.
Brussels says the goal is simple: to make Europe capable of defending itself. The plan includes hundreds of billions in new funding, investments in ammunition production, missile systems, and drone technology. For the first time in decades, Europe wants to reduce dependence on outside powers, especially the United States, and stand on its own. But behind the speeches and press releases lies a bigger story, one about economics, politics, and identity. Because building an army is one thing. Building unity in 27 nations is something else entirely. For example, this is a flag of subcultures in Europe, and if we had space, we could add hundreds of flags more. The war in Ukraine has shaken the continent. Russia's aggression revived fears many thought had disappeared after the Cold War. Meanwhile, the US, Europe's longtime protector, faces its own political divisions, and its focus is shifting more toward Asia and the Pacific region. That leaves Europe in a difficult position. Can we still rely on NATO is the big question everyone asks. Readiness 2030 is Brussels' answer to this dilemma. They need to build a future where Europe can act fast, defend itself, and no longer depend on Washington's decisions. But independence comes with a price. The Readiness 2030 plan could cost up to 800 billion euros over the next 5 years. Some nations can afford it. Others cannot. The European Commission has already lowered fiscal rules, allowing member states to spend more on defense, even if it increases debt. That means governments may need to cut other programs, healthcare, education, or energy subsidies. And that's where the debate begins.
It's maybe a little bit provocative. Today the European Union doesn't exist really. It's still a confederation of nation states that is mainly deciding by unanimity, and that is always acting too little too late when something is happening. For example, a financial crisis at the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. So that means that in the next 5 years, it's not about can we change a little bit this or a little bit that. There will be a time slot of 5 years to really change this nature, this character of the European Union, and to make it a real one.
Is Europe strengthening its defenses, or overextending itself? Supporters argue it's an investment in security and innovation, that modern defense industries can drive jobs and technology. Critics warn that it could spark economic strain, or even create a new class of powerful defense contractors, industries that profit most when tensions rise. It's a delicate balance, between safety and sustainability. The Readiness 2030 plan doesn't exist in isolation. Every tank, every radar, every drone sends a signal to the rest of the world. To Washington, it means Europe may finally take on more responsibility for its own defense, something American presidents have demanded for years. To Moscow, it could look like an escalation, a Europe rearming itself faster than at any time since the 1980s. And to China, it represents a new player in the global balance of power. Or at least they are trying to. The 21st century isn't just about weapons, it's about influence. Europe wants to secure both. But as great powers rise and realign, no one really knows how far this new arms race will go. There's another side to military readiness, one that doesn't involve tanks or missiles. When nations rearm, they also shift priorities. Questions emerge about oversight, transparency, and the role of ordinary citizens. How much control will national parliaments have over what Brussels decides? How do you keep the balance between security and freedom, when power is centralized in fewer hands? Supporters say these fears are exaggerated. Critics call them warnings worth remembering. Because history shows, once a system expands to manage threats, it rarely shrinks back down when peace returns. Readiness 2030 is still in its early stages. Factories are being built, budgets are debated, alliances are shifting. But its outcome will define what kind of Europe exists in 2030. The truth is, every great defense plan carries both protection and risk. And in the race to build power, the hardest thing to defend may be trust. Thanks for watching Thunder of Zeus, where we break down the systems shaping the future. If you found this analysis insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned.